music of other composers is already very difficult because mostly Mahler fills out a whole concert. Um, but anyway, I think it's very important to create a relationship from the past to the present. Um, and Mahler, I think, is quite, in a way, close to the audience of nowadays, because it's still he worked in the terms of the modern life. So already there were trains and yeah, electricity and things like that, and um, so it's much closer to understand the way of the thinking also of Mahler, I guess, than maybe Schumann or Schubert.
Hmm.
Um, so the connection was not that far. And then my idea was how I can really connect the music from Mahler with the present music. Um, and then the challenge was how to bring pieces which are, yeah, he can resist somehow to
Yeah.
Mahler, but also in the length are not
Yeah.
too long.
You touch on an important point, and that is that Mahler already leans heavily into the modern and into our own time. And there's, of course, a signature passage. Maybe to refresh everyone's ears, we should we'll have a little segment of you performing an aspect of the 10th Symphony that I think many people are acquainted with. But let's listen to Mahler in sort of in our time in a way, and hear what he does. It's a moment that still rattles one, doesn't it?
Yeah, now the doors are really open. After his chord, which is so, yeah, it's not comparable with what he wrote before. And the picture of now everything is possible was significant for maybe also for my idea.
That's it's a logical explanation, and of course, what would the 11th have sounded like? But that's another topic. Let's talk about recording a cycle of Mahler. We'll stay with Mahler for just a moment. It's a pretty daunting task, isn't it? I mean, you're in the footsteps of so many giants in conducting, and you're establishing this orchestra in that domain. Tell us a little bit about what that's like.
Okay, my my first idea was not to compare always with other conductors and orchestras. My my first impact was, um, what's the best way when you start as a music director to develop an orchestra and the quality and the shape and the um, to also um, show clear goals. And I think the music of Mahler is the best music in that way because you really can exaggerate everything. You can go deep into emotion, but in a way that everybody can understand. It's much less abstract, um, maybe yeah, compared with Brahms, or where you really have to go from a intellectual point of view. And here you can everything explain from your heart and soul. Of course, there is an intellectual building of Mahler, but how to play it for the musicians, you really have to give everything you have,
Mhm.
emotionally, but also technically. And the my yeah, actually the conductors is there to show the big lines, of course. um that was the my first goal, and not to, yeah, not always to look to other orchestras.
No, of course, that can't be the goal, obviously, because that then it is daunting and not creative in the unique
Yeah.
sense of putting this together for you. What do these works mean for you personally? What is their collective importance?
Well, there are many other composers I'm also very close with, for example Schumann. um and maybe I always are I'm searching always a little bit to composers which are, they have some abyss in their yeah, in their music, or how they live, and so not too shiny all the time. Of course, Mahler was a brilliant conductor and a very shining person, but what what was going on inside of him, and same, for example, with Schumann, the background of this music was always attracting me a lot. And Mahler really also, that my love to contemporary music, um yeah, is in a way very modern to me.
Mhm. Did
Not
any of the
that not too much late romantic, I mean.
Yes, yes, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Was there anything about these pieces, or maybe one or two of the symphonies, that changed in your approach to them? Did you feel somehow, um, were you learning from this process about the music itself, or how did you come out at the other end? Did you feel anything different?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I've played some Mahler in the orchestra, but not that much. And then I think, like many conductors, the first chance to conduct the Mahler symphony is the number four. Or even my first experience was the Lieder eines fahrenden Gesellen. Um, and then I think the row was four, one,
Mhm.
five, two. So it was very clearly the first five. And then um, it was a big step because I was asked to conduct the number nine. And that was that that made everything was which was coming before six, seven, and eight much easier, of course.
Mhm.
Um, But somehow in the number nine, I detected many things from number one. Or number three was a opener, the first movement, which is has an incredible dimension, and you really have to make a strategy how to come from one place to another. I think then I first realized the real dimensions of this music. I don't know if this is an answer for you.
No, it's interesting. The third is challenging in terms of its proportions and, of course, the relationship between tempi and long-range thinking, because it doesn't work otherwise. And if the ninth, in some ways, is a little bit more intimate in terms of its reach, but it does require, I think, an awareness of all this fast music. My take of this is a giant step into remembrance in the Ninth Symphony. People talk about it as a farewell, but I think of it also as recalling earlier music, and there are snippets and hints and so on. And it's sort of his way of taking stock of what's been and what's moving forward still in his life. So it's interesting that you say that. Very, very revealing. All right. We should take a look at so you have a concept you want to put together. You mentioned the Fifth Symphony just now. When this all comes together, you have a clear sense of what you want the orchestra to do, and you want it to have a certain character. And of course, you're working these things out in your head. Tell us a little bit about your interpretation, where you are going with this, and we'll have an example here from the Trauermarsch in just a second. Tell us a little bit about what we should be listening for and what you're trying to shape as a conductor in this.
Yes, I had a good intention, I think, because of the circumstances in Jena. There is a really wonderful concert hall, perfectly in the measures of the orchestra, but it's not that big, and you cannot play it, yeah, like maybe in Carnegie Hall or whatever other big halls. So you have to search for a sound which is a little bit lighter, very transparent, and there you are also a little bit more free and flexible somehow to make the tempi a little bit more flowing, instead of having always a very broad sound of Mahler. And I think from that I've learned a lot, also the audience and the orchestra, because like that you hear much more the structure, and this makes also the music understandable much more for the musicians, how to listen to each other. So we try to find a way, maybe in a good balance between playing and listening to the others.
Mm-hmm. It's a it's a great choice of piece, because this was the one that really was difficult for Mahler as he was orchestrating. The Fifth Symphony, he felt like he had to go back and relearn so many things, and he wants that audibility. It's clear when he's frustrated by his first attempt at the Fifth, and now he wants to not take it apart, but to achieve exactly, I think, what you're saying. He doesn't want to lose the individuality of the voices, even in a massive setting. Let's have a listen to the Trauermarsch. We can talk a little bit more about it. Well, it storms along, and tell us more what we've just listened to.
First of all, this is not our concert hall. Here in the background is the concert hall of the Mahler Festival in Toblach,
Right.
where we met past summer,
That's right.
which is also a wonderful hall, but much more modern. And our hall is more Jugendstil. Um, and yeah, actually here, maybe it's not the most significant passage to play chamber music like.
Yeah.
Um, but the way to come to a powerful episode like that, um, when we can give that power, but coming from a very transparent sound for the audience, also for the orchestra, but for the audience, it's really now it's coming something very big. And this kind of extreme coming from the extreme pianissimo, that was always our goal. And then a passage like that, it's it's kind of easy to come to a good schwung.
Right.
Do you know a good English word for schwung? It's not
Momentum.
existing.
Momentum.
Momentum, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Just a reminder, if you're with us live, feel free to send questions to the chat. We'll be happy to answer in the Q&A at the end of the hour. Right, let's move to how this took shape for you, Simon. You decided to commission companion pieces. Somehow that entered your mind. Tell us a little bit about that and how you ended up coming to making that decision.
Mhm. Well, yeah, as I said before, was searching for some music we can combine with Mahler. Music which is ideally somehow opener for the ears, and then for an approach that you listen Mahler from a perspective of yeah, like more into the future than only enjoying the late romantic sound. Um, and the challenge was to find a way, yeah, we can present pieces which you really remember at the end of a symphony, but this has only the length then the musicians can physically realize playing a whole Mahler symphony after a piece. So we decided to maybe yeah reduce the length of the new pieces around 5, 6, 7 minutes, and then it's a big challenge for the composer to write something which is not forgotten at the end of Mahler.
There's a big act following the piece. Did you think of finding different compositions, commissioning new ones, and different composers for each a Mahler symphony, or that's another big decision? You know, where do you find this music, and who do you reach out to?
Yeah, no, that wasn't my idea. It was from beginning. Um, my idea was to make these new pieces in a way shining and present, um, that they can stand for them alone.
Mhm.
But 5 minutes are a little bit too short. So then I came up to the thought maybe and I can combine all these small pieces in a row, um, that finally they create its own cycle. And then it's, of course, the task for the composer, um, to always, at the end, making two transitions. First to the Mahler symphony, and second to his own music. And for the audience, of course, I think when we play contemporary music, the most important thing is that we listen and listen it again and again until it becomes familiar to us. And of course, this was the perfect match in this kind of view because um, my other idea was, and I didn't I didn't think it to the end, because at the beginning of such an adventure, you cannot plan everything until the end.
Yeah.
So my idea was that we always start with the first piece and then the new one and then the other new one. So as example, in the first symphony of Mahler, we started with the first piece named Torso. And when we played the Mahler second, we started as well with Torso and then coming to the world premiere of Epitaph. Number three was 1, 2, 3. Number four, 1, 2, 3, 4. And in number five, we realized now it's too challenging for everybody
Right.
to play the whole thing. And
Right.
but finally, I still wanted not only play one piece, and then we decided at least to go one piece back. Then at least the audience heard every piece minimum 2 times.
Right. That's an enormous advantage that, of course, the Mahler has. People have heard it before, almost everyone. And then we have a piece that's put up front and forgotten, as you say. It's a very typical phenomenon. And so you're working to avoid this. How on earth did you find someone who to take on this challenge?
Yeah, of course, I was looking around at the beginning, and but then I don't remember actually who recommended me Andrea Scartazzini, but I listened to his music. He was more or less only um, composing opera and not symphonic music, but I was attracted from the very beginning by very expressive um, um, kind of writing. Also, in a way, it's challenging, it's complex, but not too complex. In a way that you can play everything, and it's worth to rehearse and practice, because yeah, as you know, there is contemporary music. You play it at the first rehearsal, and then you invest a lot of rehearsing time. At the end, it's sounding like in the first rehearsal, and that's not the point. With Scartazzini's music is really, it's also transparent. You can detect the shape and its structure, and also for the audience, and even more for the musicians. And I thought this will match, and then I had to trust my Bauchgefühl, which is maybe the most important thing. We never worked together before, and I know now we are married for 10 pieces, but normally your instinct is, yeah, actually my instinct is seldomly missing my goals. So it worked out. Very happy.
It did indeed. Well, we've talked a
Yes.
lot about the composer. Let's invite him to join us, Andrea Lorenzo Scartazzini. Welcome. Welcome, Andrea.
Welcome. So, yeah. Hi,
Nice to
Mark.
have you. Nice to have you here. Simon has talked a lot about you.
Yes, I
Uh,
heard.
what was the reaction when you got the commission and the request to do this enormous project?
Well, I would say it was a mix of joy and respect, of course. Well, joy is easy to explain because I've always been fascinated by Mahler, and the prospect of engaging in such a creative way with his work was just very exciting. And then as a composer, you can imagine it's also really nice to have, such a long-term project with so many performances over so many years. I have to say, we planned for 5 years, but then with Corona, it became 7 years.
Right. So you were composer in residence with the orchestra. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I live in Basel, so but once in a while I went to Jena, of course. So I was not resident there.
So,
with the partner. But then, let me just mention also the respect, because that's also important. At the beginning, you never know how something will turn out, and not knowing the orchestra, not knowing Simon well, collaboration is always something challenging. And then also for me personally, what Simon mentioned before, I was not, well, I hope, but I was not sure of whether my short symphonic contributions could hold on their own alongside these large-scale symphonies by Mahler. Yeah, that was the mix.
So that was it. So this was something that you were wondering whether it would work at all, right? I mean, so there was some doubt going into this.
Of course.
I mean, it's a daunting task, of course, to have your piece in front of a Mahler symphony and it to then be something that carries forward. I'll ask you much more about the details of the work, but how did you start writing these compositions? You were obviously going to create a piece for the first symphony, a second, and the third, and so on. Were you constantly thinking about the Mahler to follow and somehow shaping it around that? Or maybe I shouldn't speak for you. What was the process?
Well, I would say as a premise, I decided not to quote anything by Mahler because I thought that would weaken my position, or then my pieces would lack personality. Instead, I was looking or searching for a more conceptual approach. Mostly, it's an analogy or a contrast. I can explain that later. And then you can also imagine, like I was looking for the unoccupied seat. So for a space for my own in all this Mahlerian abundance, is there a space? Is there something where can I put my own music? So with Mahler, I also find it's relatively easy because there is a wealth of extra musical references, biographical, philosophical, religious aspects. So I could also study these aspects and find a connection through that.
And find inspiration to create your own work.
Shall I make an example for
Yes,
for an analogy? Let's take an analogy. Let's take the Fourth Symphony with the vocal movement at the end. So there, I had the idea to create a kind of a symmetry. So when you go to the concert, then you start with a vocal movement, and at the end of the concert, there is the vocal movement by Mahler. So then I decided, okay, I need to compose a piece with voice and orchestra. And then I took my cue on this childlike romanticism of the Wunderhorn text, and I looked for a similar text. I found it in the poem by the Eichendorff, the German poet.
Yes.
Eichendorff, kind of a lullaby. And then I created my kind of romanticism, a little bit more with my own means, let's say.
Right.
And so this was this analogy. And a contrast, for example, would be the Third Symphony, with this very strong beginning, the bum, 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 and there I looked for a contrast. I wrote a very soft and delicate piece with wood blocks and other percussion instruments to describe nature spirits. Also connecting to this cosmological thought of the Third Symphony. I know that he withdrew that concept later, but for me it was still a point of reflection. Yeah.
All right, so you're playing conceptually and still retaining your own voice. Were you given restrictions in terms of length, orchestration, character? It sounds like you were working on a very, very sort of rough guidelines in terms of the commission.
Well, yes, as Simon said, the pieces were deliberately kept short, around 5 to 7 minutes, but the idea was what he also mentioned, that at the end we have 10 pieces of 5 to 7 minutes, and this is a whole hour of symphonic music. So at the end of the cycle, there is a new symphony born. So yeah, and then the instrumentation is based on Mahler's, but I took the liberty of some additional percussion instruments to create further soundscapes. And when orchestrating, that was also a very important point. Well, I try to relieve the instruments which were really challenged in Mahler's work. So in my pieces, sometimes the brass section, they didn't have to play at all because I knew it's a lot of work is waiting for them. So the character of the pieces, I was really free to do what I wanted to develop. But of course, Simon and I, we were always in touch, and we were discussing what could make sense. Should it be you know, a piano piece? Should it be a very loud piece? How about the character? Yes. So, but yeah, excuse me.
No, I don't want to interrupt you. I thought you were finished. I'm also thinking about another challenge, and that is writing. Simon pointed to, in fact, there are three endings. You've got to end the piece for the performance. You've got to write an end of a piece that will connect to the following work, and then of course that has to be conceptualized as a work in its entirety. You weren't baking a big cake and slicing it, were you? I mean, you were making pieces one after the other, or how did that come about? As a complete thing?
Well, some of my pieces, I thought let's say, for example, 1 and 2, I thought them as one piece, or 7 and 6 and 7. So when you listen to them, you wouldn't notice when 6 is at ends and 7 begins. So, and this is to create, you know, not only these like pop album slices, but we can have a larger form. Yeah.
You mentioned working with Simon, the conductor, and the orchestra. What was the nature of that collaboration?
Well, I can only say the bad things about it, because I mean, the orchestra was very appreciative and very professional. I would say to some of the orchestra players, I had closer contact because I wrote solo parts for them, and to others less, of course. And with Simon, I can say that over the course of this project, I would say a friendship developed because we were so much in touch. And yeah, that was a fantastic aspect of this collaboration as well. Yeah.
So you were integrated in working with them, and of course, it's the orchestra's privilege to work with you as well. I mean, Simon, of course, too. But the fact that they can interact with you and get maybe your perspective on how to perform things or what you had in mind, you were sharing this with them as this was being created, I assume.
Of course, yes. Yeah.
Okay, I want to dive into a piece or two because this is such a fascinating project. But we can talk more specifically now. Let's talk about Epitaph, which you wrote for Mahler's Second Symphony, and it has a long passage for cello solo. We're going to listen to that. You want to say something perhaps before or after we hear the cello?
Yes, maybe I would like to say some words. Well, as we know, Mahler's Second deals with death and resurrection, especially the last movement is very, this resurrection is very powerfully illustrated. And I wanted to dedicate myself, I wanted to deal with the same topics, death and resurrection, but I wanted to deal with it in a more doubting way, or probably in a more silent way. So not the grand orchestra, but like the solo. I'm speaking of this cello solo, the solo as representing the individual. And so you could understand, like you can hear when we hear that moment, you can hear a sound wave and the cello is trying to escape, and then it's a very rebellious music, a lament against death, and by the time going by, it becomes calmer, and it becomes more, it goes into resignation. So that's
great,
or probably acceptance of this fact. So it's not, and I think this is probably more suitable for us as 21st century people. Yeah, having this doubt, probably. Yeah.
Let's listen to that segment then from Epitaph.
Yeah. Okay.
The individual struggle with the concept of death.
Yes, yes, exactly. I think you can hear that,
Yeah.
hopefully. Yeah. And then, and then the cello, it at the end, it leads us to a part for choir, like a short choral setting of words by Rilke. And maybe you can,
Yeah, we'll show the words. This is the passage that follows. We'll play that, but let's have a look at the Rilke text first.
Yes.
Because you're now, it sounds a bit like what you did for the Fourth Symphony. You're finding sort of a companion text to reflect a little bit of what happens later in the Mahler.
Exactly. Yeah.
So here's the text.
Yes. Would you like to read it, Martin? Or
well, you read it in German, I'll read it in English.
Denn wir sind nur die Schale und das Blatt, der große Tod, den jeder in sich hat. Das ist die Frucht, um die sich alles dreht.
It's much nicer in German, but here we go. For we are all only the shell and the leaf. The great death that everyone has within them is the fruit around which everything revolves. Yeah,
exactly. Yes, and yes, so you can see that with this text there is this connection to the topic of the resurrection. So it's just, but it's much more enigmatic. It's agnostic. So, and that's what I liked about it. And the choir, they have to. I mean, it's like the choir does like syllable by syllable. It's like they carve these words in the gravestone. Yes. So that.
Which is
sorry.
Which is the title of the piece, Epitaph, which is the
title of the. So this is the actual epitaph at the very end, and of course, you know, when there is a choir, I wanted to use the choir, of course, and then what you can also hear is a very widespread long chord for strings, and I imagined this chord like a wall or a barrier, you know, between this world and the next, and we can't see through.
Let's listen to the choral passage. We'll come out of the cello solo, and it'll be just the beginning of the poem. I find it very helpful when you say that the act of engraving is sort of implied there in the way that they're pronouncing those syllables.
Yes, that's the way I visualize music sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. And so here you are writing this piece that relates to Mahler in so many ways other than the notes, right? I mean, the gesture, the conflict, the nature of a text, and that is what you've done for most of these pieces. There was one exception to this that I wanted to bring up, because in Enigma, the companion piece to the Ninth, you invoke, as quite an exception, the aura of the symphony to follow. Might you say a few things about that?
Yes, there I was referring to the very end of Mahler's symphony, to the last bars when the music is really dying, and I wanted to continue this silence, or with my own means, and that's why I wrote first. I wrote music similar to his, which rises and rises. It's like an ascension, and doing so, it quietly dissolves completely into nothingness. Maybe you can hear an echo of a melodic line, but it's very airy. It's very delicate. It's like everything is vanishing in a snowy landscape, in a complete white. Then you hear for a second time the choir of Epitaph, some little changes, with some little changes, and this is again, it's about death. Mahler 9, the end of his life, also the end of a musical era, and that's why I wanted to bring to sound, or let these words sound again, and that's also why this movement is called Enigma, like the great mystery. Yeah.
I see. I see. All right. Well, let's listen to this. It's just a brief passage. It's not all of the work, but this is the evocation of of Mahler's Ninth that you can hear, and there's the hint of a melody, which is basically a quote of a Kindertotenlieder that Mahler refers to as "We will meet again on those heights." So we have some reference within your quote of a quote, in fact. So it's really quite wonderful. This dissolves into this presence. Let's listen to Enigma, a portion of Enigma. It's music you don't want to end.
Yeah, well, now it becomes softer and softer and softer. So you chose this part because it's still audible, right?
Well, that's an advantage on a show like this. But it's the ineluctable, it's the ephemeral, of course, that you can only experience live. And I've had the privilege of hearing this live, and I must say it's very impactful, Andrea. I'd love to talk about more pieces, but we're running a little bit short of time. Let's have Simon join us, and we'll talk about the project as a whole and wrap this up. So you presented these works by Andrea in the context of 10 concerts, 7 years. Is that how that unfolded roughly?
Yes, yeah. I think I remember that Andrea in the beginning of COVID somehow told me in the way of having the task always writing. It was kind of a relaxation. that I have now a little bit more time to think about the fourth and this, especially the fifth piece. And I think thinking about this background, it wasn't that bad. Also to think about the dimensions.
Yeah.
Of course, this very important. I wanted really to run a common thread for if you want to have a vision for an orchestra, um, you have to find something which the city, the orchestra, and the audience can identify with. And this music is, of course, Mahler is very strong, but also Scartazzini's music is that strong that we also could hold it somehow through the COVID time.
Can we let's show the 10 pieces and their pairings, just so that everyone has it, and that we have it as part of the documentation of this show. These are the 10 titles, and the numbers there represent the pieces the symphony number that they're paired with. We've talked a lot about this, but I wanted to make sure that our audience had a chance to look at the various titles, and you can see in terms of the orchestration what connections are being made already in terms of the following Mahler piece. So, as I understand it, you described this very well at the beginning of our show. You would have one or two, depending on how long you try to stretch them, and bring all these pieces together, and then start again, and have at least two of Andrea's pieces at the beginning of the concert, along with a new piece that introduces the symphony, and then play the entire symphony. That's how I understood it was done during the presentation of the cycle. But the idea, and now that you've been able to realize this, is to create a work that is on its own. And has this been performed? And tell us a little bit about that too.
Actually, one of the most touching aspects of the whole cycle is the collaboration with Andrea, because it, for me as a conductor, is what it was not only that I'm served with a new piece and I have to conduct it. But we were really detect and search together for a way how also to shape his own piece. Of course, I was maybe a little bit more looking into the aspects of Mahler. For example, I think the first thing was to give Andrea a very clear frame of the orchestra instruments. But then already with the second symphony came up the idea, why not to use the choir? But it must be used in an ad libitum way that you can play the second piece also when you don't have a choir.
Right.
And it is the same for the fourth piece, which you spoke before. It is written for a soprano, which is singing the final movement, das himmlische Leben. But if it's combined with the fifth of Mahler, you don't have a soprano, and
Right.
then you can it can be played by the oboe.
Nice.
So and he was always very, very open to ideas, and the solutions were very different from time to time. But actually, I am kind of proud about the very first beginning of the piece, because I thought one of the most difficult aspects in Mahler's music is the choreographical aspect of having this music from far away, the Fernmusik.
Yeah.
And I thought it could be maybe a good idea to start the whole cycle, maybe not on stage, but from far away. Also, in terms of this would be something for the audience you always can remember.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I thought, of course, a kind of a usual Fernmusik, but his idea related to the poem of which is related to the piece, he started with two trumpets, one of the left back of the hall and the other on the right back of the hall, playing very pianissimo and only one trumpet, and then joined by the second trumpet. And this beginning is really, really ingenious idea how to express the beginning of this whole cycle
Hmm.
as a picture how we work together.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to hear about that. Um,
But yes, Morten, it was also the whole cycle was done last June, so 1 to 10, with the first movement of the 10th Symphony by Mahler. So and there it was like then first was this was the only concert where Mahler was at first and then afterwards. And for all other concerts, it was different,
right.
the other way around. So that was
So
also like a nice idea, I find, and I'm
yeah.
grateful to that. Yeah, I'm grateful for that.
So you started with the first movement of the 10th Symphony, and then you went on to your 10
The
movement or
whole
your
cycle,
10-part
yes.
piece. Yeah, wonderful. I wanted to ask a question too about these pairings. Do you feel that somehow hearing your work in front of the Mahler inflected into the Mahler, that it somehow broadened the experience of hearing the Mahler symphony? I mean, it's hard for you to tell me how all of the audience has reacted, but what kind of overlap or interaction might have resulted from that?
Well, maybe I'm not the right person to say or to answer that. Maybe you would have to ask other people. But well, I think probably just the fact that you start with something new makes that you listen differently. For example, more attentively could be, and then you make this transfer also for Mahler.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, as I said, there are references, so you can still
Yeah.
combine these thoughts or these musical
Well,
elements.
as with Mahler, you have to spend time with it, and when you do, you realize how these things sort of touch the big questions. It's fascinating, and again, I wish we had more time. I want to get to the recordings. They were released, I guess, over the last 7 years, and the last one was released last month, and it features, yeah, I think we have it here. Yeah, it features the first and the 10th, but it also has, you've also done a concert performance of your entire piece, so to speak, the cumulative work.
Yes, and soon you can see the whole cycle on YouTube.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's wonderful.
Together with first movement of the 10th Symphony.
Oh, that's great. Well, when you do get that, please send us the link and we'll share that with our viewers, because that will be a tremendous asset for everyone to sit down and really explore this more. And I hope this program will have helped in deepening their appreciation of what this huge project entails and the creativity behind it. Congratulations on this really wonderful and innovative project.
Yeah, and thank you for the invitation. Very nice of you. Yeah.
My absolute pleasure. Let's turn to our audience questions. I'm going to see if we have something here. I have to look at my. All right, so I have a question from Fabian Fromknecht. Greetings from Germany. I guess that was it. How did you come up? Another Francisco Bricio asks, how did you come up with the names for each of the compositions?
Names often they just come up during the composition process. Well, I don't have the name at the beginning, but after a while working on the pieces, it just came up. It's like inspiration, and of course I try to stay with one word, because at the beginning I just had the torso, epitaph, spiriti,
right.
And then I wanted to go on with just one word titles. And then with Incantesimo, I had an Italian title. Then I thought, okay, Anima can be Italian or Latin. Orcus, Omen, these are Latin words. So, and they are also understandable. Most of them are understandable in many languages. That was also an an important aspect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have
And
another
very
question.
strong linked, very strongly linked to the Mahler Symphony.
Right.
Omen and number 6 is very
Right.
obviously committed.
True. Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's you're quite virtuosic in putting together these very many strands, Andrea, and making it somehow work. And that's reminds me a lot of Mahler's multiplicity as well. So it's a perfect match, if you ask me. I have another question from XO Knight 8166. Hello from Japan. In regard to interpreting Mahler, understanding his nuances and contexts, how important was religion and faith towards influencing how he composed music and how it impacted him?
So Mahler, you mean?
Yes.
How the impact for Mahler?
Yes, on of faith and religion.
Well, maybe I can't answer that well, but I mean, these thoughts are very strong in certain symphonies, like number 2, I would say, and number 9. And also number 6, with the Hammerschlag, the beats. So I would say that knowing his biography, we can tell that these questions were very important to him. Yeah,
yep.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, clearly.
Maybe Martin, you can add something, because I mean, you are the.
Oh, it's a huge topic, and it's something I've thought a lot about, and I could probably devote a show or two to that topic alone. Faith was a big part of Mahler in the somewhat unconventional sense. He was a spiritual man. I wouldn't call him orthodox or religious in the normal sense of the word, but he had a deep sense of the world and nature and our presence in it, and that there was much more to existence than materiality. Those things I can say with great confidence, and they, of course, informed much of what he did and how he did it. Sometimes it turned out and it expressed itself in very obvious religious forms. Other times it was much more subtle than that. But as I say, he was born into a Jewish family. He converted to Christianity. He read Buddhist texts. I don't think he felt very much pledged to one particular perspective on life. He put together his own spiritual view of it all. That's my short answer, and thank you for letting me sound out on that. I have Brigitte Jansson from Munich. She says, is there a chance to hear these pieces live? She's watching from Munich, and I like it very much. So are you going to be doing any of this live? Is this going to be repeated? How can people, especially in Germany, but from elsewhere, also come and hear this?
Simon?
Of course. One other important aspect was from the beginning to bring these new pieces as an idea in the whole music world, not only as our
Right.
idea. Of course, the origin is in Jena, but Andreas publisher is with the Bärenreiter Verlag, very famous one, and I'm very confident that maybe, of course, it always takes time, but I'm very confident that these pieces are going more and more into the repertoire of the big orchestras, because it's very evident that you have to create a certain relationship with other music, and they have the perfect length. They have a very strong connection to each other. So it's, I think, in a very early trailer is how it is written. It's invented in Jena but made for the world. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So
Simon,
the hope is that this. Go ahead.
Just Simon, you said that number 5 will be played in Jena next October, just for a very
yes,
concrete...
of course. Number 5 will play it next season. Over next number 6 and 7, and my very final concert in Jena will be number 2 in 29. So most of the Mahler pieces are fixed, and we try also to bring Andreas' entire cycle to somewhere, but I cannot say it at the moment where.
Okay, great. That's good news for Brigitte Jansson, but also for others who can look up the Jena program on the coming years, and hopefully, as you say, through publishers, make this available to other organizations and conductors. Kenneth Woods says hello from Boulder, Colorado, on the Colorado Mahler Fest, and points out that his festival, the Colorado Festival, will be from the 13th to 17 May, and it will feature Mahler's Ninth Symphony. Anthony Reumann, hi to Kenneth back. Anthony Reumann writes, which composers other than Gustav Mahler have influenced your compositions and indirectly had a bearing on the creation of the Mahler songs and symphonies? So I guess influences on you, Andrea, and perhaps in a broader context, how they may have influenced Mahler as well. But that's assuming they were alive before, while Mahler was alive or before.
I'm not sure if I got it really. So
what composers other than Mahler have influenced your compositions?
My compositions. Well, I feel a strong bond to Shostakovich. Maybe you have listened, you could listen, or you could hear that in the cello solo, which in a way it can remind me a little bit of Shostakovich, but he's really a very, well, I feel super close to Shostakovich. So, and then I feel also close to Berg, and but also like to composers like Richard Wagner and Giuseppe Verdi. So this is not a direct influence, but still it's part of my of me being a musician, and so like maybe the dramatic impact of their music also is something that I try to shape in my music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm afraid
of course, my teachers, of course, Wolfgang Riem.
Right. Very good. Well, I'm afraid we have to call it an hour, even though it's past the hour. I want to thank Simon Gaudenz, Andrea Mahler-Scartazzini for being my guests today. It's been wonderful having you, and we look forward to hearing this again sometime soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks.
Thank you. Just a few quick announcements from me. Mahler Foundation is happy to announce the relaunch of our website on February 1. As some of you may know, we have temporarily closed access to the site in order to move the enormous amount of information we have stored there to another platform. You will find an updated layout, enhanced graphics, and new navigation along with the content you have come to rely on. So please stop by and have a look starting February 1. The Mahler Hour, brought to you by Mahler Foundation and contributors around the world, is a monthly streaming event bringing together individuals interested in the composer, the thinker, the humanist, Gustav Mahler, as we explore not only his life and works, but also how his legacy still informs essential aspects of the human experience and how we can turn that experience into a force for the good in today's world. Become a member and support our activities. I want to thank my guests, Simon Gaudenz and Andrea Scartazzini, for joining us today, as well as our technical team of Francisco Brizio. The Mahler Hour is back next month. I hope you can join us. That's our program for today. Stay safe. Thanks for watching.